Every year, close to 1 billion people spend more than $700 billion on Amazon. Here's the strange part. Selling you all those things is the least profitable thing Amazon does. A company this size should make its money the obvious way on the stuff it sells. It doesn't. So let's follow the dollar, and by the end you'll see the real machine hiding inside the store, and a simple way to spot the same hidden trick in almost any company. Start with the whole machine. Amazon takes in over $700 billion a year in sales, and after all the costs of running the business, around $80 billion is left as operating profit. That's a little over 11 cents of profit on every dollar of sales, which for a giant retailer is already unusually good. But the total isn't the real story. The real story is where, inside Amazon, that 80 billion actually forms, because it is nowhere near where you'd guess. Amazon reports itself as 3 separate businesses. North America and International are the store, everything you actually shop for, and together they make up about 82% of all sales. The third business is AWS, Amazon's cloud, which rents computing power to other companies, and it's only about 18% of sales. So by sheer size, the store is the giant and the cloud is the sidekick. Hold that picture. Roughly 4 of every $5 come from the store. Now watch what happens to the profit. That little cloud business, about 18% of sales, throws off roughly 57% of all of Amazon's operating profit. The store, with more than 80% of sales, makes less than half. The smallest part of the business makes most of the money. And hold on to that store number, because later you'll see that even it is quietly propped up by something that isn't really shopping at all. That single fact, a sliver of the sales producing most of the profit, is the entire hidden machine, and the rest of this video is simply why. So why is the giant store so thin? Because every single thing you order has to be picked, packed, and physically shipped to your door. Amazon spends over $100 billion a year just fulfilling orders, and roughly another $100 billion actually getting them to you. So out of your $20 phone case, the product, the warehouse, and the truck eat almost all of it, leaving Amazon just a few cents. That's the store, enormous volume at a margin so thin it almost vanishes. Which raises the obvious question: if the store barely makes money, why is it the heart of everything? Because the store isn't really the product, it's the bait. Running it cheap pulls in hundreds of millions of shoppers and Prime members, all into one place, all the time. Think of the cheap rotisserie chicken at the back of a grocery store. The one they almost give away just to get you through the door. Except Amazon built its entire store to be the chicken. And once all those people are gathered in one place, Amazon sells something far more profitable than products. So stop sorting Amazon by its 3 official labels, and start sorting it by where the profit actually forms. One engine you can already see on the income statement. The other 2 hide inside the store's own numbers. Start with the visible one, which has nothing to do with shopping. AWS rents out computing power, the servers that quietly run a huge slice of the internet, from streaming apps to startups to governments. It brings in around $129 billion a year and keeps about 35 cents of every dollar as profit, which works out to more than half of Amazon's entire operating profit. In a gold rush, AWS isn't panning for gold, it's selling the shovels to everyone else. And that is the first deep pool of Amazon's profit. But why does the cloud keep 35 cents on the dollar when the store keeps only a few? Because computing is software economics, not trucks and boxes. Once a data center is built, serving one more customer costs almost nothing, so as it grows, the profit balloons. And much of that demand is locked in years ahead. Customers have signed well over $200 billion in future commitments, the vast majority of it cloud, a backlog that prepays the next wave of construction. The store has to keep moving more boxes to earn more. The cloud earns more just by being switched on. The second engine is hiding in plain sight, right on the page where you shop. Every time you search Amazon, Those top results marked sponsored are there because a seller paid to jump the line. That advertising business pulls in close to $70 billion a year, and it's become one of Amazon's fastest growing lines. And because showing one more ad costs Amazon almost nothing, analysts estimate it keeps well over half of every ad dollar as profit. An even richer margin than the cloud, just on far smaller revenue. Here's the sly part. That ad money isn't reported as its own business. It's folded into the store's results. So the store's thin retail margin is quietly propped up by near-pure profit ad dollars. Strip the ads out, and the store would look even thinner than it already does. The third engine is the boldest of all. Most of the things sold on Amazon aren't even Amazon's. Around 60% of the items come from independent sellers. And to be there, each one pays Amazon a stack of fees, a commission on the sale, a charge to store and ship it, and often advertising on top in plain terms. Amazon's cut of every dollar that seller rings up. Add it all up, and by outside estimates that cut can reach roughly half of everything a seller takes in. Amazon quietly stopped being just a store and became the landlord, the platform that thousands of other stores now operate on. So that $20 phone case from before. If an independent seller listed it, that seller might pocket only about $10 of your $20, with much of the rest going to Amazon. And they pay it because that's where the shoppers already are. Now step back and the whole thing clicks into place. Trace every dollar of Amazon's profit back to who really paid it, and it almost never traces back to you. It traces to a business, a company renting the cloud, a brand buying ads, a seller paying the toll. You, the shopper, hand over a few cents of retail margin. The real money comes from the businesses that now depend on Amazon to reach you. So here's the inversion at the center of it all. On Amazon, you were never really the customer. You're the bait that gathers the customers who are. And here's why this loop is almost impossible to stop once it starts. The thin store margin isn't a weakness the system tolerates, it's the fuel. A cheap store pulls in more shoppers attract more sellers, and more sellers mean more selection and lower prices, which pull in even more shoppers. Every one of them throws off data that makes the whole thing cheaper and better still. Run the store near cost, and the flywheel only spins faster. That is the engine underneath the engines. So what stops a rival from simply copying all this? 3 locks. Pulling a company off of AWS and onto another cloud can take years and break things along the way, so they rarely leave. Prime turns shopping into a paid habit for more than 200 million members, by outside estimates who already prepaid, so they reach for Amazon first. And the marketplace feeds itself. Sellers go where the shoppers are, and shoppers go where the selection is. Switching costs, habit, and a network effect. 3 of the deepest moats in business, all working at once. But no machine is invincible, so let's stress test it. Behind those record profits sits a number that should give anyone pause. Amazon has pushed its spending toward $200 billion a year, building data centers for the cloud and for AI, and that spending has quietly drained its spare cash. Over a roughly 2-year build-out, the cash left over after all that building fell from about $38 billion to barely more than $1. Yes, $1 billion, sitting on top of around $80 billion in operating profit. Both can be true because profit is measured before that construction bill, while cash is what's actually left after paying it. So a record profit can sit right on top of an almost empty tank, the size of one enormous bet that the spending pays off later. There's a second crack worth watching, if the cloud already makes most of your profit. And even more once you back out the ad dollars hiding inside the store. Then the whole company leans on a single engine, which is fine, while that engine is speeding up. And dangerous if it ever stalls. And the most profitable engine is also the most exposed. Regulators on 2 continents keep circling the toll Amazon charges, and the grip its cloud holds over the market. The very things that make Amazon so profitable, its sheer size and its hold on sellers, are exactly what draw the most scrutiny. Now, in fairness, let's sharpen the thesis. Because the lazy version of this story gets one thing wrong. You might assume a store run this thin actually loses money. It doesn't. Amazon has squeezed real profit out of it and pushed its overall margin into record territory. So the point was never that the store loses money. It's subtler and more interesting. Amazon keeps the store deliberately thin, not accidentally unprofitable, as the engine that funds and feeds everything more profitable around it. So here is the whole machine in a single X-ray. A low-margin store, run almost at cost, gathers a vast audience. 3 hidden engines then cash that audience in: the cloud, the ads, and the toll on other sellers. 3 locks, switching costs, habit, and a network effect, keep it all safe. And one enormous bet on the future keeps the whole thing fed. Every piece serves the same design. The cheap store was never the point. It was the lure that makes all the rest possible. And the lesson here goes far beyond Amazon. Whenever you see a company running its most visible product strangely cheap, don't ask how that product makes money. Ask what it's really for and who actually pays. So here is your scorecard for any business that's secretly something else. First, which part actually earns the margin? Second, who is the real paying customer? Third, what is the cheap thing really gathering? And fourth, does the cash match the profits? Run those 4 questions, and you'll start to see the same trick everywhere, from the free app to the loss-leading store. Because the real question in business was never how a company makes money. It's who is actually paying, and who is just the bait. So now it's your turn. Think of a company that looks simple from the outside, but might be hiding a strange money machine underneath. Drop it in the comments with your guess for how it really makes its money, and it could be the next one we put under the X-ray. And if you like breakdowns built on real numbers and simple pictures, with no hype, subscribe and follow the money with us.